and welcome to this edition of Own the Journey, where we get the opportunity to speak with amazing people from around the world. And today we are meeting with Mr. John Franko. John, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you're the co-founder and thinker, as it turns out, of Gorilla 76. So for those that don't know your history and who you are and where you've come from, talk to us just a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so Gorilla 76, we help B2B manufacturers grow through revenue-focused marketing programs. Been in business since 2006. Team of 29 at this point. We're getting ready to hire number 29, and no plans to get any smaller. Started as a freelance business with I was a copywriter, business partners, and art director, and we started out just doing small projects for local businesses. And I don't know, you get it as someone leading a business, all of a sudden you kind of look and you're like, wow, 17 years later now, and the journey's been a lot. You know, we've gone to a lot of different paths.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting about your path is that you guys have really narrowed in on a niche. Talk to me about how that has worked for you guys. I mean, it's not easy to say no to other business and say yes to a certain kind. How did you get there?
So it's a great question, and I wish I had a more intentional reason. We kind of backed into it, to be honest. I grew up in Granite City, Illinois. My business partner came from Milwaukee. Both areas that we came from just kind of had what I would say a kind of a blue collar mindset. A lot of our early opportunities, because of me being from this area and, you know, having connections to small businesses that a lot of them were in the industrial space, we just kind of started getting work in that area. Turns out it matched our design style, our writing style really pretty well. And word of mouth and different things just kind of led to more and more opportunities there, to where finally, it was probably about 2011, 2012, where we said, all right, industrial is really where we really want to hang our hat. They're great clients. We've had a lot of fun working with them. Our work can move the needle for them. And so we really started to kind of specialize there. And then probably 2015, 2016, we niched down even tighter and focused more on manufacturing. But to your point, early on, I mean, when you start a business, you have to survive. So
take anything.
I mean, we had a hair salon, like, trust me, knowing our two personalities and the way, I mean, I don't even know what my hair looks like right now, but the last person I should be doing marketing for probably was a hair salon. But we had a ton of fun, even like with that client. They were happy with the work. And I mean, when you're early on, you're doing whatever you can to survive. Right,
absolutely. Well, I think one of the challenges in B2B marketing is measuring an ROI. I mean, you know, marketing can be a little bit like a horse or a boat. It'll just eat or consume as much as you throw at it. How do you quantify and measure results and help business owners know that their investments are actually paying off?
What's the old quote that 50% of the marketing budget's working, we just don't know which 50%? Something like that. I'm sure I butchered it, but you know, honestly, that's probably a question that, to get into the specifics, is above my pay grade. A team of strategists really focusing on that. But I mean, our main focus is always tying it back to pipeline for our clients. It's, yes, there are KPIs that can kind of indicate those things, but there also can be vanity metrics if you're not careful. How many people were on our website? I mean, those things can be indicators, but at the end of the day, it's like, what does attribution look like? Trying to peg where that came from. We have technology now. We have access to tools that really help us see that. But there's also a lot of, like, I was thinking yesterday, I recommended to our company, in our company Slack channel, some chips I had just recently bought at the grocery store. There's no way, not that they're tracking every bag of chips, but there's no way that marketing manager could ever figure out, why did we all of a sudden sell 12 bags of chips? Like, where did that happen online? Well, it didn't. It was in Slack. And so there's kind of like that, a lot of people call it dark social. These conversations are happening. So that part of attribution is hard, but we have so many tools now that kind of help us put the puzzle together.
So when you guys are developing a strategy for a business, how do you figure out the actual strategy itself. I mean, what does the process look like? What would you recommend to business owners that are thinking about engaging with a marketing company?
Yeah.
And you can throw stuff up against a wall, but
there's a lot of marketing companies, in my opinion, that don't do it right.
Yeah.
There are lots that do it well.
Sure.
It's actually something that's kind of, it fires me up a little. I think there's a lot of people out there that are still just focusing on, well, we increased web traffic. Well, great. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I think for marketing leaders, it's like if you're vetting an agency, I think there's a variety of things you need to look at.
Yeah.
And something that my big focus at Gorilla is on our culture. I think those are definite things you want to ask. What's your turnover rate in your agency? Because that's something that a lot of agencies, 30% is kind of the industry standard.
Wow.
That's almost a revolving door. But I think when it really comes down to the marketing side of it, I think to me, and kind of our philosophy is you have to listen and you have to understand your buyer. If you don't understand your buyer, you don't have a chance from the beginning. So I think really understanding that target persona, who's our buyer, who's our primary, secondary, who are we trying to talk to, and really understanding them and their pain points and the voice of their customer. Those are the things that we're seeing as being the best place to really focus early on. Yeah. Build that foundation, and then the rest of the marketing will kind of
let itself out. Yeah. So then from there, you lean into whatever technologies or activities that make sense for that organization. Absolutely. Whether it's brand or SEO or SEM or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of ours right now is what's been now called, marketers love doing this thing where we take tactics that we've had forever and put new terms on them. Right now it's demand generation. Yeah. It's essentially advertising again. It's paid social. It's just the beauty of it now, instead of running an ad on TV that, maybe hits 10% of your audience, but also hits another whatever percent that could care less. Right. We can get super targeted.
I love that.
And 10% would be a bad media buy, but you get the idea. But now with a lot of the paid social, we can get really targeted. And you would think, well, B2B manufacturing, paid social, like, do you mean Facebook? Yeah, we mean Facebook. At the end of the day, it's human to human. Yeah. And just like everybody else, whenever a person from a manufacturing company goes home after work, they're probably getting on Facebook and looking at things. And it doesn't mean that they're still not thinking about work or thinking about the problems that are maybe keeping them awake at night or that they're trying to solve. Our job and our role is to put our client's message in front of them at that time and help them understand how they can help solve the problem.
So going back to your earlier point, then really understanding the customer, the buyer, and and meeting them where they are and getting that message out there. And if that happens to be Facebook for this demographic, that makes sense. But it could be Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
LinkedIn, Facebook. Yeah, we're starting to explore TikTok a bit. Yeah. Again, out above my pay grade, because every time I try to get on TikTok, I'm like, wait, how does this work? I'm getting ready to turn 41 next week, and I'm feeling 41 now when it comes to the tech space. A lot of times I'm like, I'm that person now that's like, wait, how does this work?
Yeah. Well, I get it, but I think the message is the same in terms of
absolutely.
It's
communication.
Yeah. So you touched on one of the things that when you're getting ready to interview or consider working with a marketing company, that you need to ask about their turnover rates. And I know that culture is a big area that you guys have leaned in. And on your website, you lead every person whose number one job responsibility is thinker first, and then whatever their actual job title is. Talk to us a little bit about culture and why you think thinking is so important, and the message that you're driving both internally and externally with that.
I think the thinker behind, or in front of the title, not behind, in front of the title, is, I think, a trap that marketers can fall into, and I have fallen into it myself, and is just wanting to lead with tactics and not lead with strategy. And that word is literally in front of the title to remind people that we need to do the strategic thinking first before we can do the executional part of the work. I think that's a massively important thing to try to remember. It's so easy to, a client calls, I have an idea on a tactic. Well, hold on, let's go back to the strategy. Let's make sure that this lines up with what we're trying to do overall first, then let's get into tactics. I think in terms of just the culture piece and why that matters, good people can get very good opportunities.
Yeah.
And so in order to keep good people at a company, you have to be doing the right things. You have to be making sure that they feel like they're growing. You have to obviously have a competitive salary. You have to be thinking about the entire employment experience. You have to think about the work-life balance, something we really all learned during COVID. I think we all knew it, but we really learned it then. So I think when you're if you're working with an agency and you're seeing that revolving door, it's a good chance that you're not working with the best team. And I also think it's just, obviously, if you're working with somebody that's only been with an organization 3 to 6 months versus someone who's been there 2 to 3 years, I think you're probably going to get, and I'm not saying that we have employees all the time that come in and are contributing right at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said for that. I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and it was all about it was on Hidden Brain, and it was all about building a team and kind of that 3 to 5 year sweet spot. If you have a team assembled for that long, it's like that's when they're doing the best.
They're just jamming.
Yeah. So I think that's what we're always trying to do when we focus on the culture. And plus, like, yes, it's a smart business thing to do, but I also think it's the right thing to do.
Right.
You try to, I think yes, we own businesses, and yes, at the end of the day, the primary objective of a business is to make money. If you're not making money, you have a hobby.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a duty to, corporate responsibility is like trying to leave things better than you found them. And I think that's like, we always talk about we're trying to create a place where people can do the best work of their lives as well as become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I love it so much. And I'm sure you've got some fun stories about the differences that you've made in people's lives and the impact that you've had. I mean, anybody who leans into culture like you guys do always has some fun stories.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, yes, I think we have made a difference in some people's lives. I think there's some current people at our company that started as interns.
Yeah.
And now there's 2 in particular that are on our leadership team now, and they're coaching their own teams and
That's
hiring
awesome.
their own interns, and then outside of work you see them having families, buying houses, buying cars, like doing the things. And so that always makes me really happy. We've also have a lot of people that are no longer at Gorilla that we actually just kind of lost a client to. We couldn't work with the client on the timeline they needed to start soon. But I want to, we lost the client to a former coworker of ours who's now overseas and has started his own agency, and it's awesome. There's no bad blood there. It's great to know. I would love to send him more projects whenever we can't get the timeline to work. So seeing those things happen is rewarding.
Yeah, and I think when your mission is pure to help people become the best version of themselves and lift them up, you're going to get the best outcomes. You're going to get the best work, the best creativity.
I think so.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're betting on.
Yeah.
It's a long play.
It is.
But I think typically the long plays are the safer.
Yeah. Well, Simon Sinek talks about the infinite game, which is one of my favorite theories in business, and totally believe that that's the right move. And when you do that in a culture first, people first kind of approach to how you lead the business, you're going to keep the best talent for longer periods of time, and they're going to create a better impact for your customers.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's a win all the way around. Yeah. So beyond just the day-to-day business of what you do, you're also involved in a lot of charities and supporting philanthropies around the area. Talk to us a little bit about your heart there, why you spend so much time in those areas, and what it means for you to be able to raise funds. I know you've raised lots of money.
So I've always, well, not always. I honestly, it was probably post-college where I was really tried to start getting involved. I got involved a little in college, a little in high school here and there. I think I was very fortunate to grow up with a family, with teachers, with coaches that kind of encouraged us to do things in the community. Went to college, moderately involved, mainly stuff that was required from being in a fraternity or whatever. And then I got out and I had extra time. Admittedly, there's also great networking and there are great opportunities to meet people. I I like to think that I went in with the right intentions to start. I know that quickly if I didn't, that those intentions became the right ones, because you started seeing the actual impact you're having.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, especially working in marketing, it can take so long to move the needle. What's really cool about going and cleaning up an empty lot in the city with a local cleaning and greening organization is that you start out and it's dirty, and within a couple hours it's clean, and you get to see the impact right away. So, I think that's always been really important to me. And then in 2016, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and that was probably those first 6 to 12 months where I was not in a good place. And then a local buddy of mine, really successful business owner here in town, he suggested I read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which is probably one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And it's about a Holocaust survivor, true story, and how he takes that experience and ends up finding meaning in it ultimately. And so that's kind of what I tried to channel. And so I've gotten very involved with the MS Society locally. I am the chairman of the Gateway board.
Wow.
And I know you're a pretty esteemed company. No, I'm really proud of that.
You should be.
What's been really cool is a lot of the awareness we've generated in the fundraising. Because when I was early in my MS journey, the thing that gave me hope was seeing the drug advancements we're having, the research that's happening, finding others that had the same diagnosis that were willing to kind of take me under their wing as a mentor-mentee relationship. Yeah. So I just simply tried to pay that forward whenever I can. I hope it's helping people, but I think knowing that, maybe you don't want to be in this boat, but knowing you're not alone in this boat is really powerful. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on all the money that you raised, the impact you're having. I mean, you've taken a bad situation and making the best of it. And a lot of people a lot of people don't get there. How's that translated into your, you talked about culture and all the things there. How has that empathetic ear mindset shifted into how you coach people at work?
I think you just nailed it with the idea of empathy. And I think it's something I'm still working on and trying to get better at. But, I used to think empathy was, there was an analogy I read recently, and it's probably like everyone knows it. It was new to me, but it's kind of the idea of like sympathy. I think it was sympathy is like, oh, you find somebody down in a hole and you're like, here's a ladder, like good luck getting out. Empathy is like, oh, there's somebody in a hole, you put the ladder and you climb down with them, and then you climb out together. And I think that has been something I've been trying to embrace. I think, I think it's just changed my perspective. I also think just the MS diagnosis in general was something that made me realize, like, you can look at someone and think one thing, but you don't know what they're dealing with in their personal life. And I've been very fortunate with my symptoms being very, very minor. But a lot of my friends with MS, you would look at them and they're running marathons, they're doing these things, but they also feel like they have knives sticking in their feet, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So those are the things that I think you don't always know. And it may not be MS for someone. It may be a bad relationship at home. It may be a sick parent. It may be whatever. I mean, everybody's stuff comes in different ways. So I think from a leadership standpoint, it has helped me become more understanding and hopefully more empathetic.
Well, I think it's so good. In our company, one of the things that we share is that in a given time, everybody's going through some level of shit. And you just have to recognize that. And sometimes that means that they need help in one area, and sometimes it means they need support or encouragement in another area. And oftentimes a good culture in a company can kind of be the foundation that they need in their life when other things are in chaos.
Absolutely. And I remember actually in my diagnosis process, there was, we would need a part 2 of this to go through the whole process, because getting diagnosed with MS is rarely a linear, quick thing. It's typically something that takes a lot of time. But there was a point where I'd had a spinal tap done. I'd gotten a call that the results were in and everything was okay, which ended up not being the case. But I remember calling a company meeting, and it was exactly what you said, because that period when you're waiting to find out is horrifying. And they've sped that up since I was diagnosed. When I was diagnosed, it took about 3 weeks. So you were waiting on these results, right? It was brutal. But I remember calling my company together and literally being like, you guys, like, I just got good news, which ended up being bad news, but I just got this news. They didn't even know I was going through all of this, but I was like, you guys have been the reason that I've been able to like function at all. Like, this has been a responsibility I've needed. It's given me a reason to just not, wallow in my own fear, I guess. But yeah, I think work, think how much time we spend at work.
Yeah,
we all talk
absolutely.
about it all the time. And it's like, you have to make that experience as good as possible. And plus, I think it's the only way in today's environment to survive. Like, the days of having the boss that's mean and whatever, like, it's not going to work. You're going to lose the good people.
You are. Yeah, absolutely.
People are talented people. There are too many options now.
Yeah, absolutely. It will. And you've taken that, and I mean, you run your own marathons, right? Like you've done that.
Yeah, I've done. I can't remember if it's 8 or 9. I think it's 9 right now. 9.
Wow.
I'm signed up. I'm training for another. It's 9. I'm training for another right now at the Marine Corps in DC, and then I should be running Tokyo in March. So I'm really, like, I've found a lot of joy in that, honestly, a lot of stress relief, and it's good for my MS. So. Yeah,
well, that's outstanding. Talk to me just a little bit about how all of the niche that you do, the experiences that you had translate into being a CEO, the owner of a business, and managing kind of the balance of life and keeping track or focus, I should say, on the things that matter. I mean, there's a lot of polls for somebody who's dealing with all the moving pieces that you've got going on. Yeah,
I think for me, it probably is just the perfect storm in a good way.
Yeah.
In that, I mean, I've basically been diagnosed with like ADD. I think my brain, I think I thrive when it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
We're trying to hire someone right now, as I was saying when I was coming in, and it's like, I want to talk, I want to review every single application. In order for me to do that, it takes most of my day. Well, then that doesn't mean the other emails stop from coming in, whatever. But I think where I struggle is whenever I find that day where I'm like, oh, wow, I don't really have anything going on today that's pressing.
Yeah.
I should take all this time and work on this long project. But I don't know. I think part of it's the creative brain that no matter how, like, even though I'm not doing a lot of creative work anymore, I think that's still kind of how our brains operate. At least me personally, I thrive on a deadline.
Yeah.
I was the guy in college that I would sit down with writer's block for 2 days or whatever. And then 4 hours before the paper was due, it was like lightning and hit me. And I was like, okay, I can do this now. It's so strange. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think to a certain extent, the madness actually keeps me kind of on track. Yeah,
that does make a lot of sense. I appreciate the fact, and I think what happens is CEOs who are creatives in one form or another evolve to where the primary responsibility is running the business. I think you apply that creativity in just different ways.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And something that hit me as you were talking there, that probably one of the best things I've learned is to let go of control. Now my employees, if they watch this, they may be like, wait a second. But I do think, if anything, maybe I've given up too much control.
Yeah.
But my concept is, if I've hired someone, like, why would I try to do their job?
Yeah.
Why would I try to tell them how to do their job? That's, when we were earlier, I was getting nervous. I was like, you're going to ask me questions that I honestly don't know how to answer.
Yeah.
But I know that we have the person that knows how to answer them.
Yeah, which is perfect.
And that's all I need.
Yes.
So I think that's been a huge learning for me, is to learn to delegate and learn to trust. And I think if you are micromanaging, at least my theory is, you either have trust issues or you've hired the wrong person.
Right.
Like, I don't really, I mean, other than that, it's like, if you've hired someone, let them do their job.
Yeah, hire great people and get out of the way.
Our employees love that. Like, I do a lot of duck hunting and fishing, and I think sometimes, like, when duck season's coming up, I'm out of the office a decent amount, because 60 days, so you got to get it all in while you can. But I think I almost sense a sense of relief from some of our teammates, and they're like, thank God, John's out of here. Like, he's in a duck blind for the next month or whatever. Not literally, but our people are good. We've hired well, and they get the job done. So
it's so good. So you talked about inside your organization delegating. I know you guys are an EOS shop as well, and so the whole idea of delegate and elevate is baked into that methodology. how has the EOS system or your version implemented your way helped you guys to grow?
Literally transformed our business.
Yeah.
And I was the biggest skeptic. I read Gino Wickman's book, Traction. My business partner and I read it and tried to implement it ourselves. It's a great book. I admire the framework a ton. I think as a creative person or whatever, you're reading it and you see the TM and registered trademark after every term and whatever, and you're like, come on, it's so good. And when we tried, I think we almost thought we were, I don't want to say too cool for it, but we're like, we're going to do our own version of this. It failed.
Yeah.
We did it, and then like a semi version of it where we were kind of ours, kind of hired an outside implementer, it was better, but it still wasn't great. Finally, we went all in on it, and I think it was December of 2020 is when we kicked it off, and our business since, it's been hockey stick.
Really?
Hockey stick growth. Yeah. I mean, and I love the meetings. I am someone who does not like meetings, and that L10 meeting ours is every Tuesday, 8:30 to 10 a.m. is, I think, one of the most productive and important 90 minutes we have all week as a team together. So
your advice would be go all in and get somebody to help you get it right.
I would. I mean, that would be and there's different frameworks, there's different operating systems. I mean, and look, I think you could do it internally. I think we could almost do it internally now, but we like our implementer so much, and he brings so much to the table that is just sage business advice. He comes from the manufacturing space, which works really so it's like, why would we ever even do this? It's money that is, the ROI on it is exponential, in my opinion.
Well, so we found the same thing to be true. I mean, it's been transformational for our business, and it because it gives you the framework. And I think that's maybe the most important piece is that, I share oftentimes that most business problems have already been solved by somebody. And so it's leaning into the people that have those experiences. And
and I think one of the things I love the most about it is just the structure that it brings. I think I love that as a business owner. I was talking earlier, like, how do you juggle all these things? I have problems come across my desk all the time, and our team's very good about also bringing a solution. That's something we talk about. Like, don't bring these monkeys in my office and let them run around without trying to take them back out with you, which I read somewhere in a book, and I love the analogy.
I love it, yeah.
But having that issues list that like obviously if it's the building's burning down, you need to address it right then. But if it's something that can wait until the next L10 meeting, you can put it on there, and like, peace of mind, I don't have to solve this right now, and I'm going to have a team that helps me work through this and talk about it.
Right.
That is probably one of the single biggest things for us, and especially when it comes from a high level of just, there's a million things going on, and you start your day thinking it's going to go one direction, and 20 minutes later you check your email and it's going 4 other directions. So now those 4 other directions, I can park it over here and we can deal with it when we need to.
I love it. Congrats on the success with that as well. I mean, it's not easy to implement it, and I think all businesses really need some sort of an operating system and a foundation to get it going. So as you talk about the tools and the capabilities that you've got inside your organization, obviously the tools that are market facing are much more ever-changing and dynamic. What do you see coming down the road that really is going to impact the marketing world?
I heard recently about this concept of artificial intelligence. I don't know if you've heard much about that. I mean, it's going to be a game changer. It already is. We're already using it. To me, AI is going to be the thing. Yes, there's a million tools, and I think part of marketing is that it's like, if you're doing a treadmill is probably the wrong term, but it's ever changing. Like, you're never getting off of it. You become extinct quickly. Or endangered, I guess, and then it's extinct quickly. But to us, AI is the future of all of it. Do we know the answers? No. Do we know how to no. Are we paying attention to it? Yes. I think my philosophy on a lot of these things is it's easy to get overwhelmed and feel like we have to figure it all out right now. But I read a great article by an agency advisor that we follow closely, and his advice was basically take a deep breath, watch what people are doing. Mm-hmm. The tide's going to rise for all of us. Just make sure you're rising with it, I guess.
Yes.
So I think we're actively talking about things. We're actively exploring things. We're trying out different tools. Our writers they're not using it to write content, but they're struggling with a headline idea or questions for an interview that they're doing. Why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah.
I don't expect our accountant to still do math with a pencil and a piece of paper. Use a calculator. Yeah. I think it's essentially a calculator on steroids is kind of how I've been thinking about it. It's a tool.
It's a tool. I totally agree. I mean, I've described it to some of our clients. To use your analogy, it's like Excel.
Yeah.
I mean, how many accountants would throw a fit if you said, well, you still have to do accounting, but you can no longer have Excel?
No.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I love that you guys have embraced it embraced it from the start. I mean, doing webinars and doing different things tied to it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, well, we're just trying to help people to think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the point that we're at.
Don't be scared of it.
Yeah, test.
Yes, could it be used in some very nefarious and terrible ways?
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
But so can automobiles, right? Everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I am curious about your thoughts on this, because I think I had a marketing friend of mine who says, ChatGPT and some of the tools that are out there, they produce everything at about 75%, i.e. the average, because that's what they're designed to do. Therefore, it takes a special person with talents to take it from 75%
that final mile, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, what's going to happen is you're going to see the need for those specialists who are really going to become a higher demand and be more valuable.
And that makes sense. And you also, as a recovering writer myself, as I'll say, actually, it's something that I miss is writing. I try to do a lot of it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But that blank page is the scariest thing. That's what delays, I would say, for me at least, that's what 90% of my delays were due to, was how do I get this started? Well, once you get it going, whatever, once you get that, 75% is a great place to be.
Oh, yeah.
So if all you're doing is polishing up and really making it hit, and okay, is there rhythm here? Does it feel on brand? Does it, if you can polish it up and do those things, that's a perfect relationship of technology and still the human ability to deliver.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we believe that that's going to be the actual future. It's a multiplier effect of technology and people. So you kind of get that 2 + 2 = 6 impact of driving that. And I think with some of the challenges with the people resources, access to good talent, I think that we're going to have to become more efficient.
We're going to have to. And we're seeing it a lot with our manufacturing clients, right? What do significant tech advancements look like there? For a long time, we outsourced a lot of our manufacturing because of the cost of labor.
Yeah.
Looks like that's going to change with some of the technology that we're bringing, Industry 4.0. So I think it's going to be a really interesting time. I think there's a lot of risk that comes with it, but it's also, we play the cards right, and we approach it right as a country, as a society, as whatever, we could be in a really great place.
Yeah, I think so.
We've got a lot of people retiring. We've got a lot of people that it's hard, our manufacturing clients can't find people to do the work.
Right.
The trades, for some reason, were ostracized and
almost shamed.
It truly. And there's a lot of people for a long time that didn't go that route. So we have to figure out a way to get it done now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned LinkedIn. I know that you're really strong on LinkedIn. You're a big proponent of kind of leaning into that technology. Talk to us about how you develop a strategy. How do you use it to get your brand out there, get the voice out there, and what you hope to get out of it as a result?
Yeah, I think we've always been a company that's been very transparent about what we're doing. Of course, there are trade secrets, or we don't share salaries. There's some things we keep buttoned up, but outside of everything else, our whole philosophy has been we have nothing to hide. Our handbook's published, whatever. So our approach to LinkedIn is to just try to help. We don't try to sell on LinkedIn. Obviously, the end game, hopefully, there's maybe a sale that comes in.
Yeah.
But rarely will you see a post from our company, people at our company that's like, click here to, register for a free consultation. So we're just trying to help. We share our playbook. And a lot of times what we learn is in the comments, like somebody will be like, hey, that's cool, but have you ever thought about this? And you're like, no, I haven't. That's a great build. So
yeah,
it's almost, I saw somebody the other day compare LinkedIn to a giant, like the water cooler.
Yeah.
Where all sorts of conversations are happening. And there's so much that can be learned from there. And especially now that we're in a virtual setting where maybe those conversations aren't always happening. Well, now instead of just having them with our coworkers, we can have them with our clients, our coworkers, our partners, our nonprofit friends, our just random friends. Like it's a pretty powerful tool. It's extremely powerful. And the way we do not require any of our employees to post on it. I think our employees have seen the benefit of people who have posted on it though, and so they're getting more and more involved. But it's their platform. We don't monitor it. Obviously, if they're saying things that are super out of line, we're gonna have a conversation with them. But we've had clients call, in fact, that potential clients that'll be like, do you know that so and so is posting about they don't like trade shows on, and they're like, we do, and it's their platform. And to be honest, we think there's better ways you can spend your money than a trade show. So, you do get some. Just having this conversation with somebody the other day, it's like if you don't have a hater to like, have you really even have you really taken a stance on anything?
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because you had shared something like paying employees to go away at one point. You got some pushback online.
I got a lot of support, but essentially, in short, if an employee gives us, I want to remember what it is right now. I need to check. I think it's 6 weeks notice. They get a 10% raise. It's 6 week notice that they're leaving. They get a 10% raise for up to 3 months. They have up to 3 months to part. And our whole idea was that 2 weeks notice is kind of the norm. And it's a scramble. Like you're not filling that role in 2 weeks. Then you have to onboard somebody, and it's just and plus a lot of times, obviously a lot of times that person already has an opportunity lined up in that 2 weeks notice, but they've been in secret and doing all these things and having doctor's appointments and whatever. And we understand that somebody's probably not going to retire with us. It'd be awesome if they did, but like. I didn't retire with the first person I ever worked for, and it was still a very good relationship, and it was a very important chapter in my career. So we're trying to just embrace that mentality. But I mean,
I love it.
You have people that, there's always going to be
haters,
people that disagree with you, and that's fine. People have different philosophies.
And,
I think that's important that we keep those different philosophies.
Well, how do you deal with that online while still staying the leader? I mean, you don't want to get into like a pissing match with somebody online. So
I think I've grown in this area maybe a little. There's still every once in a while I could get pretty fiery, but I think I think we saw this so much during the pandemic, especially. Like Facebook became like, honestly, like this toxic, like, I mean, whatever it was, masks, no masks, vaccines, no vaccines, whatever. Like people just got
extremes.
Extremes. And so I think one of the nice things about LinkedIn is for the most part, it's very relatively when you compare it to the others, but it's pretty civil. I think when people do speak up, I try to hear their perspective. I also have enough confidence and that if I feel strongly about my position, I'll stay with it and I'll explain why. But there's no need to name call, no need to whatever. We had an employee get attacked by a meme account, and actually it was 2 years ago, and then somebody found it and just wrote a story about it on Business Insider recently. But the employee wrote about how he was going through a divorce on LinkedIn, and this meme account screenshotted it and posted like, maybe she should have left you 12 months ago. Like, if you're sharing this kind of stuff on LinkedIn. And I just like, what are we doing here? Like, why would you kick somebody when they're down? And it wasn't like he was like, I'm going through a divorce and here's how it applies to marketing. It wasn't like it was just like a very real, authentic post. I don't know. There's always going to be people out there that I don't know. I think it comes from insecurities.
Well, I think one of the things that you said really stands out, and that is that if you're not taking a stand on something and potentially offending or rubbing somebody the wrong way, are you really taking a stand? So
I love disruptors, and I think a lot of times those are the type of people we try to hire. And look, sometimes you're going to make a good take, and sometimes you're going to make a bad take.
Sure,
but that's how you learn.
Yeah,
that's how you grow.
Absolutely. Well, we like to wrap up all of our interviews with asking you some of the best advice that you've ever received, or some advice that you would like to share.
This one is so tough because and I'm not just saying this, I truly have been so fortunate to be surrounded by people giving so much great advice.
Yeah. I
think one that comes to mind that I use all the time and I try to coach our team on, I had my first ever writing, I was a copywriter. My first ever boss taught me as a writer to cut things in half and then cut things in half again. And to me, it's so much bigger than writing. It's effective communication. I have employees that they'll send me an email and it'll be a block of text. And you're like, I try to coach them on that. I'm like, you can eliminate so many words here. Be efficient. Don't be afraid to do a break in your paragraph. But learning how to communicate effectively, I think whether that's life, business, personal relationships, that is the single best thing that I think any of us can try to improve upon. And so just from a business writing standpoint, when you write something, cut it in half and then cut it in half again, because I promise you there are words you can cut out. So very tactical, very in the weeds, but that's what I would probably that would definitely be in my top 5 to top 10 advice. I
love it. I think we can all learn something from that. Well, congrats. Well, I'm gonna raise a glass to you.
I'm sorry, I'm already
and say congratulations. And
likewise.
thanks for owning your journey.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Take care.
Take care.